Good to be with you on a Thursday afternoon, a well-deserved day off for the Padres after had to have been the most eventful three-game series we've had to this point in the season. A busy one up in the Bronx. A lot of stuff happened, and we'll discuss day off, and then it is on to Coors Field to wrap up this 9-game road trip. So excited to discuss the highs and the lows of the last few days with you. It is the On Fire podcast. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. Good to be with you, Derek. How do we find you on this Thursday afternoon?
A little warm out in the East County out there at SDFC training as they get ready to go to St. Louis. But summer's coming, man. It's nice. It's nice to kind of feel that kids are getting out of school. We're getting ready to go. You know, baseball season is going to be here and in full swing. You know, college is going to playing in their postseason tournaments. It's nice.
I wonder, they have so many, most of their players are from out of town. They don't understand the different climate areas around San Diego. They probably think, oh, it's just nice everywhere. They're about to find out training in the summer out there in Sing Hills. It's going to be a different beast for them. They're getting to be about that time of year, but good for conditioning, I would imagine.
Yeah, very much so.
Well, excited to be with you again this week. Thanks to OG's, a sponsor of the On Fire podcast. Appreciate all they do for On Fire and the NBC7 sports team. If you need a great place to have a good meal, catch a game, whether it's the Padres, whatever your team of choice is, other Major League Baseball action, NBA playoffs, NHL, perhaps some golf on the weekend, OG's is a great place to do it. Hit up one of their many San Diego County locations. Great menu. Constantly doing new specials, updating their menu, and an awesome beer list. So hit up OG's. Appreciate all they do for On Fire. Without further ado, the walk-up music. It is the On Fire podcast brought to you by NBC7. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. Always appreciate those who watch live on the NBC7 YouTube page. If you're hanging out with us, hit the chat. Let us know any questions, comments, hot takes. We'll get to them on the show. Always love getting you involved. And there is plenty to discuss from the last few days. I was just trying to kind of take inventory of everything that happened. Mike Shildt and Fernando Tatis Jr. getting run. Shildt in spectacular fashion on Monday. Xander Bogaerts and Manny coming through late to steal one in the Bronx. Then they kind of flipped the script, going from having the lead late to a 10-run blow-up from the bullpen between Morejon and Wandy Peralta. Oh, yeah, Jackson Merrill came back on Tuesday, double in his first at-bat, so good news there. Then Wednesday, Dylan Cease flirting with a no-hitter. Cody Bellinger blows that up. Next thing you know, Dylan Cease is walking off the mound with some sort of mysterious injury, and then an extra innings loss. Trent Grisham, a couple homers. Did I miss anything, Derek? I mean, it seemed like everything that could have possibly happened over the last few days.
God, Michael King had a good start. Another one. Other than that, I mean, Jackson Merrill taking Max Fried deep. You know, the lefty on lefty matchup that he's just been fantastic. And then, of course, he gets hit in the forearm. So you're freaking out for a second if he's going to be okay. Yeah, I think it pretty well covers it. And then we'll get into the minutia of all of that. But yeah, it was a fun one in New York when we thought that the biggest story of that 3-game series was going to be, will they play it because the weather was so bad on Monday.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was dicey for a little while there. Yeah, just to kind of make things even more interesting in the Bronx, as if we needed that. But fortunately, they were able to get all 3 games in, and a series that could have gone like either way. They could have very easily gotten swept. I mean, if you don't have a couple clutch at bats there on Monday, you're looking at the potential of a 3-game sweep, but they could also have gone the other way. So I don't know what you do with the series like this other than kind of flush it and move on, hope that you kind of patch up whatever the bullpen issues are, maybe get Tatis back on track. But I don't know if I would necessarily see what happened over the last few days and overreact too much, because it could have played out in so many different manners.
Yeah, no, you don't overreact. It's what you do is you look at it as the Yankees are a really good baseball team, and you had a chance to take all 3 of them in their yard. And we knew coming in, man, the Yankees live and die by the home run on offense. And sure enough, it was the home run that did the Padres in. So you tip your cap to those guys and go, all right, that was pretty good. The bullpen thing, before that one inning on Tuesday, the Padres bullpen had allowed 24 runs all year. They allowed 10 in one inning. That's one of those like, hey, what do you do? It's a statistical anomaly. You throw it out. It is what it is. Jason Adam giving up a home run to Trent Grisham, while it hurts, the guy's not going to be perfect all year long. He missed his location and he got hurt by it. Dylan C said it was just a cramp. He said it was just fine. He would have stayed in the game. It was a playoff game. Whatever it is. This is nothing to be concerned about, at least not yet. Remember, the Padres still have Shane Reynolds and Brian Hoeing ready to come back. Ryan Berger has been a nice surprise coming out of the bullpen. So we don't need any more bullpen pieces. They're fine. They have kind of been, walking that line, flirting with danger, whatever you want to say, most of the season. And they come out with maybe a little bit of luck, but they're also very good. So, yeah, eventually it's going to swing the other way. This is the series that just swung the other way. So it is what it is. You go, oh, that was kind of fun. Now let's go over to Colorado. No, if the same things happen against the Rockies, now you've got problems, because the Rockies are a terrible baseball team. And you look at it now you've got like legitimate concerns try and work out here if it happens against those guys.
Yeah, there is the Coors Field element. Now they should have Jake Cronenworth back. Got a couple El Paso appearances under his belt, and so it sounds like we'll see him this weekend. And at that point, you mentioned Sean Reynolds, eventually Brian Hoeing. Like, this team is close to kind of becoming whole again, or at least a version that we expected to see. Really,
Darvish is not far off, apparently.
Yeah,
so
true. Yeah, Yu Darvish. A big one there. Obviously, Joe Musgrove, knowing that we probably won't see him at any point this year. If he does, I don't know how much he'll factor in, other than just kind of getting some of the rust knocked off ahead of 26. But
he's going to Walker Buehler this thing, man. He's going to get the final out of the World Series. Yeah,
I'm here for it. And if anybody was going to do that, to push it to do that, and is built to do something like that, it would be Joe Musgrove. So far be it from me to put that past him, but it's just good after kind of a trying few weeks with so many injuries piling up the way that they did, to see these guys come back, to see kind of the whole version of this team. And I think friend of the show, Petey, chiming in, can we say the Padres aren't ready to party with the big boys yet, still need some bullpen starter pieces and a bat? I don't know if I'm there quite yet, because
they can definitely party with the big boys. Do you realize, Petey, that they would be leading 4 other divisions in baseball right now? And they're in second place because they haven't played the Dodgers yet. They played some pretty good ball clubs and come out on top in most of those series. So and remember, everybody else is incomplete too. The Dodgers are not as complete as we thought they were, even with all the injuries that they've been having. This is a team that is very, very, very good. And do they need to make some tweaks? Yes. But are they ready to play at the highest level? Also very much yes.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And I was kind of doing the math, just looking at their schedule, who they've played, records against those teams. And I think, one of the encouraging things about the season so far is, like, you go to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's bad. They just fired their manager. They sweep Pittsburgh. We saw the Rockies at Petco Park. They swept the Rockies. They've been good against the teams that they should be good against, which hasn't always been the case with the Padres. Even around this time last year, when they went to Colorado, did they drop 3 of 4? They had some series in Colorado that got a little bit sideways. It's one of the times where Mike Schilt kind of fired back at reporters a little bit, just not kind of playing to the level that you would expect this team, with the talent they have, to play. Hasn't been the case this year, but I think even if you take away those series against teams with, sub 500 records, and Atlanta's going to get above that mark too. I mean, they're in the sub 500 category. I don't think that they're going to stay there. But you're still
not even close. They're almost back to 500 right now, aren't they?
Yeah, they're a game or two back. I was just checked the other day. But even just against teams with winning records, you're looking at a team that's, I think, maybe a couple games above 500 or somewhere in that neighborhood. And so they've beat good teams. They've shown the ability to do so. Now there are some, it's funny. People have been talking about the offense. I mean, you mentioned obviously the bullpen. The last, since the second game last week against the Giants, where Jason Adam gave up his first run of the season, Jeremiah Estrada gave up a run as well. From that point since, bullpen has a 5.76 ERA, 1.24 WHIP. Teams hitting 217 against them. Walks are up compared to where they were before. I mean, you mentioned they gave up 24 runs before Wednesday or Tuesday, and they've
Tuesday,
given
right?
up
Until
12
before like the
and
7th inning on Tuesday.
so skewed the numbers a little bit.
Right.
They'd been the best bullpen in baseball. I'd still put them right up there. Is it an overuse thing? They've played a lot. They've been in a lot of close games, and so there haven't been too many instances where Mike Schultz had the ability to kind of stray away from the typical formula. So maybe that's starting to catch up to them as well. I don't know if I'm quite ready to sound the alarms in the bullpen yet, because you look at the guys, and there are guys now. Maybe Wandy Peralta. Maybe you feel like he was overperforming early in the season based on where he was at last year. But look at Estrada. Morejon was really good last year. Obviously. Jason Adam, I was about to say Adam Scott, Jason Adam, Robert Suarez, like these are proven guys. And so I have faith, especially with Reynolds coming back, going eventually, they're going to look pretty good.
Yeah, that's Peralta, I think, is the one you mentioned, who you're kind of going, oh, he's been a lot better than anybody would have anticipated. And he had his one big blow up. Morejon, we've seen this throughout his career. He'll be really good for stretches, and then he'll have that one outing where it's bad Morejon shows up and nothing works. I mean, literally nothing works out. The good thing is usually those don't last very long, and he has been able to bounce back from those truly blow up, horrific outings, which is what he just had at Yankee Stadium. So, I mean, again, Peralta's kind of the guy like, it's more of what we kind of expected. If anybody's going to have an explosion, you would think it would probably be him. So, and Yuki Matsui is going to have one. He's been kind of overperforming what most people thought he would. I don't think Robert Suarez ever will. But you're getting Jeremiah Estrada eventually is going to have one where he just didn't have it that day, and then he rolls off 8 straight scoreless outings. So it happens to everyone. The thing about guys in the bullpen is you have such a tiny margin for error. So when you don't have that, you had that one outing that you give up 4 or 5 runs, where some of the guy behind you inherits them and can't lock the door for you and bail you out. Your ERA is going to go from 1.2 to 4.3, and then it takes a lot longer to then drop it back down than it did to have it blow up after that. So over the course of the season, these guys are all going to be in the high 2, low 3 range. It's going to be fine. This is still a very, very good bullpen that has performed in very big spots already in the season to get the Padres to where they are. And as we've seen traditionally, they've been better down the stretch. So they probably maybe got hot a little bit quicker than we're used to, but the talent level is there. This has not been a bunch of dudes who have just been lights out at all in mass, and all of a sudden they're all going to come crashing down to earth at the same time. Like the truth is much closer to what they have been.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It's interesting now, a lot of people have kind of discussed the offense, and they've been winning games and they've been clutch. And so maybe we haven't paid as much attention to it or seen it as much of a concern, but they are 21st in runs scored. They are 24th in homers. They've got 30. The Yankees, who we just saw, 62. Dodgers, 59. Cubs, who we've seen, 55. Mariners, how about the Mariners, 51. Walks, they are lower than you'd maybe expect. They're 20th. Strikeouts, they strike out fewer than anybody else in baseball, so they got that going for them.
The Arise factor.
The Arise factor. Stolen bases 11th. But like average, they are where are we at? Batting average, not that far down. I'm missing them somewhere. 8th in batting average. On base, they are 11th. Slug, which I think is, going back to the homers, a concern of some people, they are 18th. And so they've been able to win, largely on the backs of the best pitching staff, the best bullpen in baseball, clutch hitting, a lot of grit squad type wins. We've seen some kind of explosive offensive performances, but does that ring any alarms from you? Kind of a middle of the pack-ish offensive team, or maybe even below. It is, you talk about complementary baseball, like one aspect of the team is going to be humming while the other is struggling. I don't know if I'd say offensively they've been struggling before, maybe like the last, injuries and that sort of thing, maybe this series. But does that give you any sort of pause projecting forward, long season? There's going to be highs and lows, that sort of thing.
No, because they've gotten 12 games from Jackson Merrill. They've gotten 12 games from Jake Cronenworth. They've gotten a lot more at bats from. Let's just run down the list. A lot more at bats from the likes of Martin Maldonado, Luis Campusano, Oscar Gonzalez, Yuli Gurriel's gotten 36 at bats. Jose Iglesias has gotten 89 at bats. He's supposed to be a guy who was like your change of pace coming off the bench kind of guy. They haven't had the majority of their actual offense together all that long. Also, look at the time of year. Petco Park in April is not a fun place to hit. You're not going to get a lot of slug there. They had to go to Wrigley Field where the wind was blowing in and it was 40 degrees. You're not going to get a lot of slug there. They had to go to Houston against a pretty good pitching staff. Detroit with Comerica Park, again, in April, where the ball is not exactly going to carry in that spot. Now, Yankee Stadium, the ball is going to carry, but you're also facing Max Fried and Carlos Rodon. Like, you're facing really good starting pitchers. You go to Pittsburgh, they don't have a whole lot of starting pitching. They got 9 runs in one of those games, but they got the sweep. So, we wait for the calendar to turn over a little bit, get into the warmer days at Petco Park, get into some of these games where you get to go to Toronto at the end of this month. Toronto, that's always been a launching pad up there. So wait till we see some of the time of year where it's going to be more amenable to hitting the ball out of the ballpark, and then you're going to start to see things change a little bit.
Yeah, and again, like, still managing to win games. Like you said, they're not.
That gets worked. It's worked.
And so it's kind of, it's sort of a double-edged sword. They've been able to win despite not being like super explosive at the plate. But I guess there's kind of that part of me that like, okay, does that catch up to them at some point? But as you laid out, there's a lot of factors kind of in play here that lead you to believe that, things will turn. How about getting Jackson Merrill back? Doubling his first at bat. You're like, okay, let's not go for the triple. Now, Manny ended up being a third, so that wasn't really an option. But 2 hits right out of the gates. Max Fried had allowed 2 homers this year. I went and looked. I think he allowed 5 to lefties all of last year. Merrill gets him. Makes me think of who's the Mason from the A's? Why is that name hard throwing lefty from Oakland? Yeah, from who he homered off of last year in a day game.
On the first pitch slider.
Yeah, Mason Miller. Thank you. One of those moments you're like, oh, wow, and now obviously we've seen him do that, but still impressive to see him do that off Max Fried in his second game back. And then he puts them ahead again. What was that, in the 8th inning? So, he's been sensational. Schilt had a cool quote talking about how Merrill has stayed engaged with his normal process, even though he's not getting at bats, but in terms of doing his prep, in terms of studying who they're facing, that sort of thing. So like mentally he's been in it. And he looked very much like a guy who's been mentally engaged, even if not physically and not around the team. Just the way that he's played just in his first 2 games back. It's been incredibly impressive again for a 22-year-old.
Well, it takes me back to something Philip Rivers told me in 2006. He came here and he sat behind Drew Brees for 2 years because Drew was Drew. He came into his own with those, 2004, 2005, before he had the shoulder injury, gave A.J. Smith the reason to get rid of him, and he went and joined with Sean Payton and became the Drew Brees who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But Philip came in and he played a really good rookie year, and they went 14-2. Now, granted, he was handing the ball off to LT, but he also had Antonio Gates. So he had a really good first year as a starter. I said, how'd you get, sitting that long? How'd you, not have any rust to knock off? And he's like, well, I was taking mental reps. I wasn't sitting there just like, holding the clipboard, looking up in the stands, figuring out what was going on. I was calling the plays in my head as I was going. I was preparing for this mentally. That's what Jackson Merrill's been doing, going through his scouting reports, make sure he's preparing from a mental standpoint every game up until he has to go out on the field, which obviously he couldn't do. So he was going through the same process, keeping himself engaged that way. At that point, the guy is so physically gifted. If he has the mental part straight, the tools just show up and he starts hitting the ball like he never left. So that was really awesome to see from a 21-year-old kid who just turned 21, last month, by the way. It's awesome to see what that kid's able to do and how mature and understanding his baseball IQ to handle it that way. But it's like he's only gotten 45 at bat. Tyler Wade has more at bats than Jackson Merrill this year. Nobody would have thought that would have been the case, and the Padres are still winning games. Nobody thought that Tirso Ornelas would be playing 7 games already. It's like injuries have kind of killed things. So once they all get together and everybody does their thing and comes back, they're going to be just fine.
Well, and shout out to you for being the Tyler Wade apologist on this podcast, because that was very much like, I don't know if there's room for Tyler Wade, and he has been awesome for this team so far, especially like you said with guys out, playing some center field, hitting 292 with a 758 OPS, had the big game against the Giants. He's been really, really good, really important. So, I mean, cool to see him have kind of to come back, stick around, have his moment early on with the season, and demonstrate what type of impact he has beyond just the vibes, because he's, from a purely baseball standpoint, at a time where they've needed guys to step up and contribute, he's done that. So good on you, Derek. You were on this from the jump.
Wade is a guy who he just like he said when he came back, and I talked to him, he was in the clubhouse that day, like he feels like a San Diego Padre. This is where he wants to be, he's where he needs to be. And he just, at this point, if I was Mike Schilt, I would be scared to not have Tyler Wade available. And then when Jake comes off the injured list, hopefully without any setbacks this weekend in Colorado, who do you get? You can't get rid of Wade at this point, right? Like, it's got to be like an Oscar Gonzalez or somebody.
I think Oscar probably.
Yeah, which you wouldn't have thought would have been the case coming out of spring training when Tyler didn't even make the opening day roster, because you wouldn't have thought he would be an outfield option. Yeah. Now you've got an outfield option. He's shown that he can handle center field, and there's, he's not going to lose you a game. He's certainly not Jackson Merrill, but he's capably handling the position. So you can put him in the outfield now. Yeah. So it's what he's been able to do, man, has been just do what Tyler Wade does. His last home run he was in 2022. He's not going to give you the slug, but he's going to get on base in front of the guys who do. He's going to play solid defense everywhere, and everybody in the clubhouse and the dugout loves the guy. He's he's kind of got that little jerks and profile kind of feel to him, obviously without the production aspect, but from a clubhouse perspective, he brings that same kind of feeling, and it's just awesome to see him doing what he's doing.
Yeah, no doubt. I was excited about Oscar Gonzalez. You were optimistic about Tyler Wade advantage, Derek, from that standpoint.
No, Oscar has more physical skills for sure. Like, you're absolutely right on that. And he might play a role later on down the line if Jason Hayward has another setback with his knee or whatever it might be.
Yeah. This is an interesting one that I didn't mention. Did you see any of the scuttlebutt about them potentially tipping pitches? There was the Nick Pivetta incident with the Giants last week. And then when Wandy was on there during that big inning, if you guys follow Letters to AJ on Twitter, does great work. He posted a video kind of showing some of the signals, or a signal the Yankees were doing for non-fastballs, they weren't doing for fastballs. And obviously we saw how that inning went. But I again, one of these things to maybe keep an eye on, because there have now been a couple instances where teams appear to have spotted something against different pitchers, to differing levels of success. Obviously, Pivetta got out of the inning, turn around, let him know about it, whereas Wandy Peralta got shelled.
Well, Peralta, remember, he signed with the Padres last year from the Yankees. So they know him. They know him very well. So if anybody's going to have me, like, if they know his tendencies, then they're going to jump all over him, which obviously they did. So if they knew that he had a tipping issue before that, and were waiting to exploit it when he got there. I hadn't heard that part with that. I heard about the Pivetta thing. And here's the thing. More pitchers than you realize go through a pitch tipping thing in their career, because you get so locked in on what you're doing that sometimes, like a hitter, they won't realize that their front hip is opening up in their stance a little bit until they realize, well, something's going wrong. Why am I striking out so much or popping up? And they go back and look at the video, go, oh, my front hip's opening up. They fix that, and they're right back to being them. That's how slumps and hot streaks happen all the time. Mm-hmm. Pitchers will not realize they're doing it. I remember Kurt Schilling when he was with the Diamondbacks. He was rolling. All of a sudden had 3 or 4 starts where he was just couldn't get anybody out. So you realize that when he was going to throw a fastball, his fingers of his glove were like this. He was going to throw a curveball, his glove was just a little bit tighter because he was trying to get the grip on the baseball, or vice versa. One of those things, but they knew just because of this, right? Flared out glove means one pitch, tight glove means another pitch. And he was just getting shelled, but he didn't realize he was doing it, right? So when everybody will go through something like, even the dogs agree with this. They say Kurt Schilling was hitting good. Everybody will tip their pitch at some points. It's how quickly do you catch it, and do other teams even pick up on it in the first place? So if there is an issue like this, believe me, it will not last very long. And I will say this. don't ever get mad at other teams for picking up your tendencies or picking up your tells. You know, is if you're not hiding, it's like playing poker. If you are not smart enough to hide your tells and someone else picks up on them and then takes you to the cleaners, that's not their fault. That is your fault. So if you get mad at them for stealing your signs or tipping your pitches, they're not using the electron, not the Astros thing. They're not using some sort of extra thing. If they're just looking at tendencies and seeing what you're doing, and this has happened in baseball for centuries, right? Going back to the late 1800s, everybody has done this. You know, I've done it when I was in college. Dude, look at it. We got their signs. You know, you just do that. If they're not smart enough to hide it, you take advantage of it. So don't ever get mad at the other team for doing it as long as it's above board and just taking advantage of you not paying attention to what you're supposed to be paying attention to.
I would do it just to get in the head of the opposing pitcher. You know, obviously it didn't seem to bother Nick Pivetta too much. He was aware of it, was still able to execute his pitches. But, you know, I would think to do it if if it's a young guy or whatever, just to kind of throw him off a little bit, just do signals that don't mean anything just to see if you can kind of get in their head a little bit. I mean, I'm all about that. Yeah,
just see, start making the movements or something like that, just to think, wait, do they have something? Wait, what? You know, because if a pitcher is just a little bit distracted on what am I doing here, maybe they don't execute the pitch quite as well. That's gamesmanship. I'm all for it.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's talk about Tatis a bit. He one of the stories early in this year messed with his mechanics a little bit in a positive, and it seemed to really work. Kind of eliminated the high kick, doing sort of the toe tap, putting his toe in the dirt, sort of adjusting to whatever is thrown his way. Has had a lot of success, walks up, strikeouts down. There are a couple interesting, like if you look at his Savant page, launch angle, he's putting a lot more balls in the dirt. Launch angle's way down. Somebody mentioned like not as much opposite field power, still fairly early in the season, but you look at his spray charts, I mean, it's all over the place. And he's hitting homers everywhere, all over the yard, mostly all pull side homers to this point. He gets plunked Friday. Maybe that has something to do with it. Gets hit on the forearm, you know, if there's just some swelling or throws off his timing or just doesn't feel right. But folks have noticed, and then, you know, I picked up on it on Tuesday, that he had gone back to a high kick. First inning against Clark Schmidt, and he had a 0 for 5 against the Pirates on Thursday, then like an 0 for 4 against Rodon and the Yankees on Monday. Clark Schmidt strikes him out. He was using the toe tap, and then he goes high kick the rest of the game. And then yesterday, he did a little bit of everything. I think he started with kind of a shallow step, shallow stride. Then he does the high kick. Then he does the toe tap. All of which leads me to believe, I don't know what any of this means, but all of which leads me to believe is he's searching for something.
Yes,
is that fair?
He's not sticking with his approach that helped, that was working early in the season. And you'll see a lot of guys will tinker. I mean, look, Cal Ripken Jr. is kind of the classic example. The guy won an MVP award twice with two completely different stances. It seemed like every year he had something different than he was doing. Now, typically guys don't do it within a season or within a month, you know, or they're even within a game where they're trying different things like that. Here's what needs to happen. Victor Martinez used to say, Toddy, come here. I'm sure on the flight to Denver, he got out the iPad and was like, listen, this is what you were doing when you were raking in April. This is what you're doing now. Put them side by side and say, stop this crap. Go back to this thing that was really, really good. So he gets a couple rounds back in the batting cage and he gets right back to being Fernando Tatis Jr. That's, you know, and again, guys will do this throughout the course of the season. They'll ebb, they'll flow. They'll have really good hot streaks. They'll have really bad down streaks. The thing about Toddy that has been kind of the part of his career that's been frustrating is when he does go into a downtrend, they tend to last a while. Kind of like the same as when Manny is hot. He'll get hot for 3 months. You know, now it's not a 3-month slump for Tatis, but he will try so hard. Things don't go exactly as they had been for him. So he'll immediately try to change something to try and get back to doing what he was doing. And again, it's all under the umbrella of trying to be the best version of him he can be to help the team. But he said it during FanFest. You said, if my head's in the right place, that was a caveat for everything. Well, right now his head's not in the right place. So he's got to get his head back in the right place so he can be the Fernando Tatis Jr. that we saw for the first 6 weeks of the season, which, again, it's going to happen. And he'll get right back on track. And then as he grows and matures and gets more time in Major League Baseball, he'll realize that the approach I have that works, I'm hitting 350 with. Well, then if I go on a 2 for 20 with that approach, you don't need to scrap that approach. You just need to stick with that because you will come back. It will come back to you. That was the thing. And then here we go. Tony Gwynn mentioned the same thing last night about Tatis. And speaking of Tony Gwynn, the thing that was great about Tony Gwynn Sr. was he was so consistent with his approach. His swing never changed. His swing never varied. His approach, his stance never varied. He was a metronome with everything. If it was working, if it wasn't working. Now, granted, it almost never didn't work for him. But if you stick with the same thing, eventually, over time, it's going to work out more often than not for you. So Todd needs to understand, listen, this is the approach that works for me. And if I go into a little bit of a funk, don't change anything because the game will come back to you. Once you started, you said it perfectly, Darnay, searching. Once you start searching for that thing that's going to work for you again, now you go off on some Lord of the Rings journey where you're walking around for 3 months. You have no idea what's actually going on instead of just doing you, and the game will come back to you. It always does.
Yeah, very well put. And I mean, you have a great point. He was hitting 345 before this road trip. He's on a 2 for 22, hitting 182 with a 553 OPS, and now his batting average is 319, and his OPS is 936. Still exceptional numbers.
Right.
But your point is well said. How do you mentally handle that, knowing that like you're just going from here to here? It's not like you're dropping down to here. You're still really, really good. You have an approach that has worked for a month plus. It might be wise to stick with that, but then that's where the discipline comes in with 9 strikeouts, 4 hits over this road trip. And again, it is a relatively short road trip. I was looking, his last homer he homered in back-to-back games in Houston. So last homer came on April 20th. Since then, longer stretch of 14 games, hitting 259 with a 644 OPS, slugged 333 compared to, I think it's probably double that, about double that for the season. So maybe, it's maybe been a bit more glaring over the course of this road trip. And maybe he's also been thinking, man, I haven't gotten yard in a long time. The power just isn't there for whatever reason. I feel like I can generate a little bit more with the bigger leg kick. These strikeouts, my timing, I mean, he's had some ugly swings that we just haven't seen this season when he's been so in control. And I think even his last at bat Wednesday is a great example where, obviously game's on the line, you have a chance to, get the go ahead run through. And I mean, he took this swing for strike 3 that looked like his top half was just going to pop clear off his bottom half. I mean, it was this violent, out of control swing where his head's going off, where you just like, okay, that's not going to work for you. You haven't seen that all year. And look how effective you've been being in control, being short, just bat to ball. Again, just it's been uncharacteristic in terms of what we've seen, but characteristic of Tatis in terms of what we've seen in the past when he has struggled and it gets away from him. And you just hope he can kind of, and like you said, with the help of Victor, kind of rein it in and keep this from turning into a longer slump than maybe it needs to be when your head kind of gets away from you.
Yeah, I noticed that swing too. And it looks like his top half is just flying way open. He's trying to pull everything out of the park instead of just, like I said, and I noticed it. There was a Friday night game against who I want to say the Cubs. Let me check the schedule of that. One of the ones they lost early in the year at home, which again was a very rare. Against the Rays, the 1-0 loss to the Rays at home, where for the first time all year, the couple runners on, here comes Tatis, and for the first time all year, he went outside the strike zone. He struck out on, again, chasing 2 pitches that were nowhere near the strike zone because he tried to do too much, right? That was the first time really we'd seen him do that. And he kind of got himself, reined back in again, but now he's doing it again. He's trying to do too much. And it's the violent swing. They're trying to pull everything off. They're trying to hit the ball, 480 feet when 405 works just fine. It's when he gets back to doing what he was doing earlier, putting the ball in play, barreling it up, great exit velocities, like he was doing in the playoffs last year. He wasn't out there to, spinning out of his shoes trying to hit everything. He was just putting the bat on the ball and getting 119 mile an hour exit velocities on doubles at Dodger Stadium. You know, once he gets back to that, he'll be fine. But again, this is the thing. How long is it going to take him to get back to that approach?
Yeah. Hopefully not too long. And this is where I always get concerned because I do feel like there can be a snowball effect with him.
Get him out of the leadoff spot then. Put a Rise back in there. He didn't have a great series in New York either, but you got to figure if anybody's not going to have a prolonged slump, Luis Rise is the guy who's not going to have the prolonged slump.
Yeah. And, if you're struggling a bit with slug, if you need to maximize home runs, that sort of thing, it might make sense to have Tatis behind an Arise or a little bit lower in the lineup where there's a better opportunity or better chance of him hitting with somebody on board. So I don't know. Interesting. PD chiming in. What do you guys think of Adam throwing low and into Grisham? Geez, isn't he a golfer? Where was the scouting report? Grisham is, in my experience, always working on his putting in the clubhouse.
Yes, always. Oh, he had putting games they would play inside the clubhouse. He's a big golf guy, and he's even come on his podcast and said he was a big golf guy.
That's right.
I think that was more of a missed location from Jason Adam than an actual attempt to do that with Trent Grisham.
Yeah. I think Adam even said so much after the game, and man, what a run Trent Grisham has been on. 292 OPS over 1,000, now up to 10 homers and 20 RBIs. Now, pull side, as we saw Yankee Stadium, going opposite for Aaron Judge. I mean, that would have been a routine fly ball the other night at Petco Park. So Trent's got that to his advantage now, that short outfield there in right field at Yankee Stadium, and he is taking advantage. But there's been a lot of Trent Grisham.
Maybe he had a real hitting coach here in San Diego. If he'd been here with Victor Martinez, maybe he could have done that here.
Yeah. And I was going through his numbers because he's had big months and that sort of thing here. Everybody obviously remembers what he did against the Mets in 2022. Mm-hmm. Boy, I had completely forgotten about the 2021 season for Trent.
Mm-hmm. Where most of us have wiped 2021 mostly from our memory banks.
That's fair. He had a 891 OPS going into July. Now, we know what happened the rest of the year, although they did play well. It wasn't really until August where things fell apart. But I was looking for like a big month here or there. He had like a big 3 months where he had 4, 6, like 10 homers going into July. It's like that version of Trent Grisham, but we seldom saw that after that point during his time in a Padres uniform. Good on him. And how predictable is it that he would have at least one massive swing against the Padres during the series?
Yeah, it's what always happened with the Padres for tale as old as time. Somebody leaves who was kind of, I guess you'd call a middling player here, and goes off and then comes back, and it's Jed Jerko all over again. It happens with every team. It seems like it happens more often with the Padres. It happens too, and with every single team. And when the year is over, Trent will probably go right back to having his 230 with a 705 OPS. What good for him for having success in New York, but it's what we saw this series is not the real Trent Grisham.
Yeah. Petey saying, what's the latest on Cease's arm cramps? It seems to be just that. You are our non-licensed medical expert on this pod, Derek. You know anything about forearm cramps?
Yeah,
that's
it. Get some potassium in there. No, I think here's the thing I wanted to talk about with Dylan Cease was, did you notice the difference in that first inning of that start? He did something he hadn't done for any of the start all year. It was, he's been kind of dealing with the changeup. He's been throwing the two seam. Early in games, the fastball slider velocity wasn't there. He's 94, 95 on the fastball and kind of rides it up as the game goes on. This is the first time I recall all year where first inning, here's 98, screw you, deal with it. So he, from the jump, he was like, I am attacking everybody. Didn't throw the two seam as much. Didn't throw the changeup as much. It was fastball side. This was vintage last year Dylan Cease. And my guess is when you're throwing that much more high velocity, that much more often, your forearms are probably not all that used to it. So the lactic acid built up a little bit and he had a cramp in his arm. That's my guess. Yeah. Because if, they're doing all their tests and all that good stuff and they say it's nothing structurally wrong with them, fantastic, awesome. Might take them a little longer to kind of get back into. Plus, it was humid in New York with all that humidity out there. Like you're out there for that long. He hadn't been in Chicago for a year. He's not used to the humidity being out here in San Diego for most of his starts. So, that was what I think was going on with him. Was he's throwing a lot harder, a lot earlier in the game, a lot more often, and his arm just said, "Hey, buddy, hang on, maybe not go through 7. Let's start with like 90-ish pitches, then we'll go back at him again in our next start."
Yeah, vintage Dylan Cease, as you said, is spot on because it did feel very much like the guy we saw at points in last year when he really had it going, where that fastball, the velocity slider combo is just devastating. Maybe show you the knuckle curve just to kind of keep you off balance a little bit. And yeah, he looked like a different guy, far and away his best start of the season. And I thought that at bat facing Judge, I think it was the second time where he threw like 2 strikes that were called balls and you could tell they were getting to him. And right after throwing, absolute paint, I think low and away on Aaron Judge, doesn't get the call. And then he challenges him like 98, probably got more of the zone than you'd feel comfortable getting Aaron Judge, and just blows it right by him. And there was one of those moments on top of like the Tatis and Machado defensive plays where like, okay, something special might be cooking here. It was great to see that version of Dylan Cease because we haven't gotten it consistently. And maybe it's to your point, him doing some tinkering, changing up his arsenal a little bit. Maybe it's like, I am who I am. We've seen that guy. Let's just kind of stick to that.
Yeah. The slider was the best it's been all year. The fastball was the best it's been all year. The 4-seam, and then, mix those things. I think he was trying to use too much of his new toys. Like a kid gets a new toy and he plays with it like crazy, but eventually kind of goes back to the tried and true toys that they've always loved. And they still got to use the new ones every now and again. That's Dylan Cease. He was using his new toys, probably using them a little bit too much, and then realized, you know what, it's just kind of not working for me. Let me go back to my bread and butter. This is what I do. This is how I do it. And then it was just, boom, here you go. I'll mix these in a little more often than I have been and not just be almost pure fastball slider. And if he takes this kind of approach, obviously the stuff is off the charts. You don't see Aaron Judge, who looked like he was on. His timing was there, just getting overpowered by a pitcher very often. Dylan Cease is one of the handful of guys on the planet who can overpower Aaron Judge. For him to do it not once but twice in that game, that was damn impressive.
Yeah, super impressive. So, that despite the way things kind of went south with him, I think, an encouraging sign as it projects going forward the rest of the season, as long as, the form is no cause for concern. Man, everybody's dying for Xander Bogaerts to like hit his stride and turn his corner. And he's had some moments here in the last, week or so. The homer 3 RBI game against the Giants, back-to-back 2-hit games, 3 RBIs Sunday against the Pirates, and then the late knock to deliver the win Monday. 1 for 8 the last 2 games. Still not getting a whole lot of extra base out of him. He follows up that game against the Giants with an 0 for 4 with a couple strikeouts. Yet, maybe at a certain point, you just kind of maybe like Trent Grisham, like what we're seeing is just the kind of guy that we're going to get. And every so often he'll come through for you in a big spot. But we also know his history and that gives you kind of reason to believe. But I think everybody's rooting for him, pulling for it to happen. But it's just like, it's like 1 step forward. I wouldn't say 2 steps back, but just hasn't been able to kind of build on it the way I think everybody's hoping to see.
Yeah, he's been producing. I mean, he's a third on the team and runs batted in. He's had a nice little streak of getting base hits in big spots, which is nice. Now I want to see more big hits. The exit velocity's ticked up a little bit. He's had more quality of contact, so I think that's a good sign. And again, I'll just say it again. I say it all the time. I don't understand how a dude who is as big and strong as Xander Bogaerts is, and you and I both see him in the clubhouse. Again, he looks like an NFL safety. How he's not hitting the ball with more authority, I just don't understand it. I don't get it. But hopefully it comes back around for him, And you got to figure a guy, again, with that kind of track record, even in year 3 in San Diego, where it hasn't been consistently great, he's too talented and too dedicated for it not to have some sort of 2-month run where he looks like, Silver Slugger winning Xander Bogaerts again. I know it's in there. I just hope it shows up at some point.
You know what I think they should do? I think in November or December, I think they should kidnap the guy. I don't know, where's he? Aruba, maybe during the off season. Kidnap the guy, take him to the Dominican, hang out with Fernando Tatis Sr. We've heard what Ronald Acuna Jr. said about him. We've heard what Jurickson Profar said about him and the work he's done with those guys during the offseason. Obviously, Tatis comes in with a completely, mostly different approach this year to great results. Get that guy with Fernando Tatis Sr. and see what he cooks up, because I think you're absolutely right. There's something untapped in there, that some sort of tweak, mechanical thing, because he's connected. Now, I feel like there's been more instances where, like Exodus did pretty good, pretty impressive. Like he got a hold of that one. It's just not the type of balls that are sailing over the fence, which everybody wants to see. And we feel like you can see from him about 20, 25 times a year. That has not been the case for whatever reason. And I don't know who he works with, obviously Victor, but I'd be really curious a few weeks, a month with Fernando Tatis Sr., who seems to have been kind of the swing whisperer for some of these guys. What does he see in a Xander Bogaerts?
Well, Darnay, if you are suggesting that we should, ask our news director if we can take a trip to Aruba in November, I'm totally down with you. I'll make that trip in a heartbeat. Go talk to X. But hey, man, come on, and then we'll stop in the Dominican. We'll go over there. We'll take do a couple pieces like that. I'm totally down for that. That might be the best idea you've ever had. So we'll work on that in the off season. There's got to be something. There's got to be something there, some key somewhere. It's like being in an escape room. Just where's the thing to unlock Xander Bogaerts? Because it exists somewhere. It might be Fernando Tatis Sr. It might be his old youth coach somewhere. I don't know what or where that person is, but he's out there somewhere, or she's out there somewhere who can offer the bit of advice, who can help unlock Xander. I know that person exists.
Yeah. It's in there. I don't know how to get to it. I think we've covered everything I had in mind. Anything that we haven't gotten to that has been of interest to you?
Should we let Petey take over the show again? Should we
there we go.
Leo DeVries to San Antonio or El Paso to see if the kid is the truth? I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. And actually, I am fully convinced that somewhere right around Futures game time, we'll probably be seeing Leo DeVries getting a promotion to Double-A. And then we'll see him and hopefully Ethan Salas of the back spasms is no longer sitting on the sideline. See those two guys playing together at Double-A. And then once they start doing that, now you've got something that can be really excited about getting close. Because DeVries is already showing that he's probably too talented for the Midwest League as an 18-year-old. And it's going to get to the point where he's no longer challenged by the Midwest League. And that's going to happen very quickly. I know the Padres like to push their guys and make sure they offer them, the most aggressive challenges possible. So, yeah, I think somewhere probably in the next month or two, we will be seeing a promotion for Leo DeVries to San Antonio.
I was just texting our buddy John Conniff just to see if he was around to weigh in on this, but it doesn't look like that's the case.
He's probably in China or something.
He might. I think he did have a China trip coming up, so that's a very real possibility. Yeah, pretty interesting. He's been sensational. Does he still have like the highest slug in high A? Because I think he did at one point or for a stretch. Oh
my God! Also, I got to call myself out here. Yes, thank Victor Rodriguez. Victor Martinez is a former third baseman. I will forever mix them up. Thanks for calling me out on
that. Given how I feel like the accelerated timeline for a guy like Ethan Salas hasn't worked out the best. Two different guys, obviously different positions, different skill sets. I'm fine letting Leo marinate for a little while in high A, but there's going to be a lot of people. A lot of people will be tuned into those streams, as soon as he's up in San Antonio.
Oh, I am. I'm watching Fort Wayne quite a bit right now. And what I'll do is I'll be like at work and I'll just kind of put that one on a different window over here and kind of monitor. It's coming up. Oh, DeVries is up. Everything else can stop now.
Mm-hmm.
And then watch him take those. And because I mean, he's working from both sides of the plates. His power and we saw this with Lake Elsinore last year. You know, it kind of has a slow start to the year, and then once he hits that first home run, they just come in bunches. He starts lighting up everything. So if he's in one of those grooves, man, yeah, by all means, ship him off to Double-A. They didn't leave Tatis in Fort Wayne for a whole year. They sent him up to San Antonio pretty much at the same time. I'd love to see him do it.
That's true. And then Tatis went straight from San Antonio to the Bigs, right?
Just like Jackson Merrill did.
Yeah. So it could happen. You never know.
I would like to see it happen, actually. I really would. If for no other reason than you're probably better off being in the Texas League over the summer than the Midwest League over the summer, because it's going to be sweltering hot. It's going to help. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, hold on. Let's see if we can do a little play by MILB.com. Oh, by the way, as I hop onto MILB, John Oliver is on the cover. Did you see what he did?
Uh-uh.
Oh, it was brilliant. He wants to do a promotion for a minor league baseball team.
Oh, nice.
And it would be, dude, I'm telling you, it would be the single greatest thing that has ever happened. So I'm hoping that the Lake Elsinore Storm take them up on it. Yeah,
that'd be cool. They do a lot of fun stuff with that show.
Oh, God, that would be one of the greatest things in the history of ever.
Oh, DeVries. Let's see. Midwest League Player of the Month for April.
Oh, hang on. Stream's coming up right now.
Led the Midwest League in slugging at 625, on base over 1,000, while being
tied. This is great for the people listening on the podcast right now, too. This is one. Thanks for sticking with us through this one, guys.
On base plus slugging, excuse me. Tied for the league lead in triples. Third in extra base hits, total bases, and average 306.
And he's 18.
Wild.
Oh, come on. Why is the stream not showing up? I get the circle of death.
It's not showing up because we're trying to do this live right now. Pop out the short. Hold him back. He might not be ready.
Oh, great. Way to go. We jinxed him. That's it. Send him back down to Elsinore. Career's over.
Give him some time.
What a bum.
Drop him from number 1 in the Padres prospect rankings.
Who's he think he is? Xander Bogaerts?
Too real, Derek. Too real. Pleasure being with you. Thanks to everybody chiming in on the chat. Always enjoy getting you all involved. Make it a lot of fun. Rockies, then the Halos back home. And
without Mike Trout, by the way, that's going to, God, come on. You're going to have to bring the dumb Angels down here. At least have Mike Trout play. We don't even get that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like if you do get Mike Trout, that's like a real plus. Given the way things have gone, like that seems to be the
yeah.
Sadly.
Great. You turned me into negative Derek at the end of this podcast.
Kind of how it's gone. But Jackson Merrill's back. Dylan Cease is shoving. Cronenworth is back. They're going to sweep the Rockies. There we go. And on a positive note.
Great to be with you. Will the Rockies score a run this series? Because they still have not scored a run against the Padres this year, and they played them 3 times.
I think it'll happen. It is Coors Field after all. We're bound to get like a 15-12 game at some point. It seems inevitable. As long as the Padres have a 15. All righty. We'll be with you guys next week.